Hello, I'm Nick Bishop. Some people call me Nico. I'm a psychology pre-med major here at Andrews, and I've decided to become a student missionary. And the reason I'm here today is to tell you guys why I decided to do that and hopefully encourage you guys as well. So, it all began like a year ago around this time. It was the first week of March, and I had the opportunity to go on a mission trip. But like the thing was, like I didn't know I was going on this mission trip till like 4 days before. And those that have gone like 4 days before, like that's crazy. So what happened is like I told the director at my school, I was like, hey, like I really want to go on this mission trip. I heard it's happening. Can I go? Or like how much do I have to pay? How do I do this? And then he's like, nah, like you're late. Like the spots are filled. And I was like, what? It's like September. School just started. And he's like, yeah, they filled up. And then, so I kept showing him that I had interest in this, but nothing happened. But then 4 days before, my mom got a call, and they told her, they're like, oh, someone just dropped out. We know your son was interested. Does he still want to go? There's 4 days before we leave, and you guys need to pay $2,000. So for some people, like, oh, they can pay $2,000. If you got it like that, but we didn't have it like that. So we had to fundraise. And the thing was, in 48 hours, we got $2,000. I say we, but God gave us $2,000 in 48 hours. And next thing I knew, I was on a plane to Lima, Peru. And like just when that trip happened, like my life began to change. So I started there, I was working construction, like laying bricks, building a church. And it was fun, I had a lot of time with my friends, the people there. It went over a hot day, but then that night, the director came up to me and was like, oh, Nick, there's the clinic, like they're really struggling. The surgeon thought that he could deal with people with the language barrier, but he really needs a translator. So they knew that I spoke Spanish, so they're like, oh, we need a Spanish translator for the surgeon. So I was like, all right, sure, like whatever. Like I really wasn't supposed to be here, but I got here, I'll do whatever. And so I go, and like we're driving down there, and it's like 300 people, like just in line, like it's crazy. I was like, oh man, there's a lot of work to do. You know, so we start getting in there, like we're doing surgeries, I'm like talking to these people, praying with these people. Like I'm even like opening the people up while he's like removing the tumor. And then that's when I was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like medicine and healing people, like this is insane. And the thing was before, like I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I liked working with cars. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a mechanic. I'm not gonna go to college. Like I wanna go back to Argentina. I wanna start my life there. But then like, my mom made me, she was like, no, you gotta apply to college. We want you to to stay here. But then here I started to notice, I was like, oh, like medicine, healing people, missions, like this is something I wanna do for the rest of my life. So the first lesson I learned was like that, like God's showing you what you wanna do with your life, like in this mission field. And then, so one of the first conversations I had with the pastor there and the doctor, so the doctor was asking the pastor, and I was like translating it, and he was asking like, oh, what do you guys do for church? How do you go to church? What do you do? And then the pastor's like, no. La iglesia no es un edificio. La iglesia es donde hay gente, una persona que tiene el amor de Cristo en su corazón. It's that the church is not a building. Church is where there are people or someone who has the love of God in their heart. And that started to resonate with me. I was like, so I'm the church. So like everyone in here is the church, whether or not we're in this building. And so that was the first lesson. And then it was like right before we were going into this surgery that we had to do. It was like this tumor removal in this lady's shoulder. Like I'm going out, and like it's this part of the school, and it like hangs over this cliff. It's this mountain, but it's all like dirt, so it's not really that pretty. And I see like these kids playing, they got no shoes on, no shirt, and I'm really starting to think, I'm like, how are these kids living? Like and they're having so much fun, like the biggest smiles I've ever seen. And then I start to think, and I'm like talking to God, I'm like, man, God, if you really want me to do missions as something, or be a missionary, you want me to be a doctor, or study medicine, something like that, like I need you to to show me yourself. And I know God like looked down at me, he's like, are you serious? I gave you $2,000 in 48 hours, I got your ungrateful butt on this plane, and you still want me to show you myself. But he said, you know what, I got you. So we go do this surgery, I'm like holding this lady's shoulder open, I'm tired, it was like an hour, and then I'm tired, so I go on a walk after the surgery's finished. It was fun. Like I'm going on a walk, like inside though. So I go back to that area where on the cliff where I talked to him. I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. And then all of a sudden, like I feel this little kid run up and he hugs me in the back of my legs. And like I turn around and I pick him up and I recognize him. His name was Mateo, and I'm walking with him. I'm like, where's your mom? Like, ¿Cómo le va llevando? What are you doing here? And then he's like, oh, like I'm good, whatever. And then I noticed that he's wearing a crown, like a little paper crown he made with VBS. And I start to think, I was like, you know who else wore a crown? Like, it may have been a crown of thorns, but it was still a crown. And so I thought, like, wow, God just like that showed me himself. So I was like, you know what, like, you know, you win. Like, I'll do missions, I'll study medicine, like, I'll come to Angie, that's another story. But I get here, and I'm like, wow. And I really started to see, like, man, God is moving in my heart. And this trip, it's like 10 days, and it had, like, the biggest impact on my life, a positive impact, like, than anything else that I've experienced. And so, like, the reason I'm thinking, like, oh, I want to do another mission trip or a year mission is because I saw that 10 days, and I saw the impact that I had on people and that they had on me. And I can't imagine what a year will do to me. And so that's why I want to do it. And, you know, it brings me back to John 21:25 or 25, 21:25, where it says, like, if every good deed that Jesus did was written in a book, like, there wouldn't be enough books in the world to hold all that he did. And so as I'm thinking, like, a lot of people, like, you're like, oh, we don't have time. Like, I don't have time. Like, whether you're like PT, you're like, oh, I got that 3 and 3 I got to stay up with. Like, I don't have time to mess that up. Or architecture, graphic design, art, whatever you're doing, pre-med, you're like, no, I want to be this doctor. I want to go to med school. I want to do this. But it's like, no, like, we do have time. And like, now that I think about it, it's like, now is like all of our time to start filling that book just like Jesus did. And I don't know. And then another thing I want to leave you guys with is, it was like the last day that we were here in Peru, and I'm walking around, and I see like these kids are like on these skateboards, like no shoes, like just stopping on the ground. I'm like, how is that? Like, how are you? Like, you're about to come do the surgery. If you keep doing this, like, you're gonna mess up your feet. And then like I see this lady, and she's limping, like she does not look happy. And then like from the back, I was like, oh, this girl is like having like a rough day or something. But then I see her in the front, like this huge smile, like she's looking at her, like I guess they're her kids or something related to them, and she's like laughing at them, having this big smile, and she's like limping because she wanted to go to the doctor. And then I asked her, I was like, how is your smile so big? And she tells me, she's like, no, like I fought too hard to let something small lose my smile. So I want you guys, like, I want to leave you with that. Like, I know tests come around, and these quizzes and these teachers, they act out, and they're, you know, you don't like them and all, but I want you guys to know that, like, you guys have all fought too hard to let something like that lose your smile. So, thank you.
Is it on? Hello, Andrews. My name is Naisa. I'm a social work major. And last year, I went to Mauritania as a student missionary. So 1 year minus Corona. I would encourage you to Google Mauritania right now. It's right below Morocco. Not a lot of people know about it. So Google it as I speak, because it's going to make a lot more sense, all the things that I say to you right now. So the story of how I got to Mauritania is a testimony in itself. I'm not going to get into that. But I got to Mauritania with no expectation of what was going to happen. Because I knew for me, as a social worker, I wasn't the typical pastor, you know, giving Bible study, or doctor. I wasn't going to be doing surgery. So when I got there, they told me, you know, do whatever you can, help out in whatever you can. So that's what I did. I took pictures. I was the social media manager for the place there. We did medical caravans, so I was the event coordinator for those things. We did disaster relief, which was pretty cool. All these things were really exciting to me. I really liked them. But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't social worky enough. I learned a lot of things from these experiences, but I wanted more out of my experience. So just to tell you a little bit more about Mauritania as you Google it, Mauritania is a really big country with like little people. It's like 4 million, and 90% of the country is just desert. It's very traditional, and it's an oral society, all right? And it's divided into caste system. Where I lived with the rest of my team was, you can say, in the poor area. So we saw a lot of discrepancy in the ways that people were treated in the, let's say, in the higher caste versus the lower caste. So I started noticing different things. Let's say education. The education for the higher caste was very, holistic. They were taught about geography, other things, and the lower caste, basically, the teacher comes to class and writes everything on the board. You write it back on your notes, you memorize it, and when the test comes, you just spill it back to the teacher, and that's it. There's no critical thinking whatsoever. Well, for me, in my mind, I was like, I don't know why this bothers me so much, but I need to do something about it. Like, it doesn't sit right with me. So I talked to my supervisors, and I told them that I wanted to write a project about education, to do something just to enhance the education there or in the school that I worked in. And they told me, you sure do it, but it's not gonna pass. It's not gonna happen. You can try it if you want. So I wrote the project, wrote the proposal, sent it over, and what I received was just a big no. This is not gonna happen, it won't happen. I was like, okay, but I won't take no for an answer. So I got creative, and I decided to just tweak the project a little bit so I won't upset anybody. And so I started teaching this group of 50 girls, 25 in each class. And the first week or first couple of days I started teaching them, I asked them, okay, what do you want to do when you grow up? Some of them told me I want to be a teacher. Some of them told me I want to be a nurse. The majority of them told me I want to marry a good husband, a rich husband, and have 3 kids, or 5 kids, or 7 kids. Mind you, these kids are in 8th grade from 11 years old to 16. They can barely write their names, okay? They can't read or write, and that's the answer they gave me. My heart broke in a way that I just really can't explain to you. So when I started teaching them, I had this book of different women in different parts of the world, and I would read these stories to them. I would just love to see like their curiosity, and they'll ask me for the book afterwards and just flip through the pages. They can't read, but they'll flip through the pages and just begin to imagine, life of other women around the world. I just love to see that. I remember teaching them, let's say, math or multiplication, and we'll do different activities. At the beginning, they told me, why do you teach us so differently? Like, can you just copy on the board like the other teachers do, and they will just memorize it? This is too much of a hassle. Well, I had to explain to them that I don't want to just simply teach you. I want you to enjoy the learning process. I want you to enjoy learning and seeing something different for yourself, and see that there's more to education and learning than what you've been taught. Fast forward a couple of months when Corona hit, I'm so heartbroken to have left them without finishing the program, but I remember that when I would see them just enjoy the process, I got reminded of this Bible verse where Jesus says that I've come to give you life in abundance. And to me, that was life in abundance, because if you think about it, we can't really enjoy life when there's inequality, injustice. Listen, it's 2021. We know the things that are happening around the world right now, and we see that it's very difficult, even for us here in the state, to enjoy things because of all the inequalities that are happening. But if Jesus has told us that as world changers, right, as his disciples, we are to spread the gospel. That means that we have to create abundant life around us. And for me and these girls, it was teaching them that there is something more in the world than what society has told them that they could do and they were able to do. What I want to leave you with is that for me as a student missionary, as a social worker, I knew that what God had put in my heart was not the typical Bible study, because I can't do that. I'm not a pastor, right? But each one of you has something that God has put in your heart. Whether you're an architect, whether you're a business, whatever your major is, God has put something in your heart to do for the world and to be called to do. And that you can do whether you're abroad, whether you're here. And that passion and that life that you have in yourself creates abundant life around you. That joy, that love, that passion that you bring in the things that you're called to do really brings abundant life around you. I am passionate about justice and all the social work things, right? And and for me, doing these things with passion and with all of my heart, I believe it's what creates abundant life around the people that I serve. So as I leave you with just this simple message, I just really want you to think about whether you stay here in the state and serve, whether you go abroad and serve, whether you go to the next continent and serve. The sharing the gospel is not going to look the same for me as it does for you. It's not going to look the same for pastors as it does for an architect. That doesn't mean that you're not called. That doesn't mean that you can't do it, because God is able to use anybody at any point in time to do his work. And I'm just going to leave you with that. And I hope that you're inspired to go and change the world and to fulfill the mission that God has for you, wherever that is, and whatever that means for you as a person.